Hi, this is Kevin with Space Cadets, and I'm here today. I wanted to do a very quick video. A little while back, I made a video about how to use the Windows or Mac desktop application for Sonos, and I know folks found that a little bit useful. So today I wanted to do a quick explainer on how to set up, if you have a soundbar like a Sonos Beam, or you have the Play Bar or a Sonos Arc, which is kind of their top of the line right now, how to set up surround sound satellites to go along with that. Very quick walkthrough. I'll show you how to do it in the app, but I wanted to give a general layout here. Now, I'll apologize. This isn't actually a permanent setup. I was just doing some basic sort of testing because I wanted to see how it sounds, but this isn't normally how we do it. But broadly speaking, you're gonna have your TV over here, right? We've got our Play Bar sitting underneath it. And then in the back corners of the room, may be difficult to see, but we have one rear surround over here on what is the right side if you're looking at the TV, and then one back here on the left side. Now, again, these aren't actually permanent installations for the speakers, so they're a little bit goofy, but I did want to start with this zoomed out view for a moment because it's important to note when you talk about surround sound, it doesn't mean that the rear speakers are actually directly behind the listening area. They ideally should be out to the side and set slightly back if you want to actually have like an appropriate arrangement for Dolby Atmos or Dolby Digital. So if you have questions about where to locate the rear speakers, you can actually go, and Dolby has a site where you can look at for the various configurations, because there's lots of different ways to configure surround setups, how to do it and what sort of angles you should have from your central listening position. I'll look to include a link for that in the area below, but it's important to note. And it has tons of different configurations because you can have ceiling speakers, you can have 2 ceiling speakers, you could have 4 ceiling speakers. If you're going with the Sonos system, it's going to be pretty straightforward. You're going to have a sound bar at the front and then 2 rears, and that's it. The only other option you would have would be to have 2 front channels powered by a Sonos amp, and then the 2 rear surrounds. Now the 2 rear surrounds can be done a number of different ways. Right now I'm just using some old Play ones. You could use Sonos ones. You could use the IKEA. Some of the Sonos speakers that they have, that's actually a great option because they blend into decor and they are relatively cheap. You could use something more expensive like the Play 5, I would not recommend that, or you could use the new Era speakers, the Era 100 or the Era 300. The Era 300 will give you some additional capabilities in terms of the ability to beam sounds up and then off the ceiling to create some height effects. And that is one important thing to note. This is an older Play Bar, so this isn't going to do any Atmos. This is going to be a traditional Dolby Digital 5.1. It's going to come from here. It's going to cover the first 3 channels, left, center, and right, and then the 2 surrounds. If you have the second gen Beam, you have the Sonos Arc, or some of the Era 300 speakers specifically, those are going to be able to take advantage of Dolby Atmos. Really what you need to know, Dolby Atmos is the newest version of what is the Dolby surround sound standards. And in particular, one of the key differentiators is that it has not just a 360 spatial layout for that, but it also has height components to the sound. The Sonos Arc will actually project sounds up to bounce off your ceiling and then bounce down to your ears. The Era 300 does this as well. And so that's the kind of the key distinction if it's Dolby Digital versus Atmos. It really has to do with that ability to create and layer in a height component. Some of the things that generally sound great, rainfall, helicopters overhead, etc. That's where Dolby Atmos can be really very impressive. So I'm going to talk about this. Really, it's super simple. Once you have your living room bar set up, all you need to do is then pair in some set of Sonos speakers to be able to work with and be synced up to that device. So that's the only thing that you really need to do. And I will say, Play Bar, again, older device, but is kind of a flagship item for Sonos for a while. I've enjoyed it for years. I will say there's a different component, right? When you add in these surround sounds, no matter what, you're not going to be able to fully replicate a full, actual surrounding speaker environment if you're just coming from a single device up in front of your TV. There is a difference. Now, is it the be all and end all? No, but it does create a different level of immersion for for your audio and visual. Now, I actually haven't been able to do this, but when we worked in this house, I actually put in speakers so I could go with a much more robust ceiling-based Dolby Atmos setup. I haven't been able to get to that just yet, but I will say even just pairing up the two Play Ones with the Play Bar has amped up that audio experience, and I think you would experience the same thing if you're going with the arc, beams, etc. Adding in those surround components changes the dynamic. It changes music, but it definitely changes TV and movies. Given what we have today in terms of streaming boxes, getting an actual surround signal is pretty common. It used to be, it was very difficult to get a surround signal to the right devices so that you could take advantage of it from whatever media you were using. But today, Fire TV Cubes, Apple TVs, Rokus, they all do pretty well with being able to manage and send out surround signals, and the TVs themselves do a much better job. Older TVs couldn't pass it through. So it's much more ubiquitous to be able to make it functional. And if you have the speakers to be able to do it, and you can make it work well in your space, I would encourage it because it definitely changes the dynamic. So with that, that's all we need to do in terms of the physical layout. And now I'll get into how to set it up on the application, and we'll go from there.
Okay, so here we are in the Sonos app. Now, once you've opened up the Sonos app on your phone, you're going to want to click this middle section here. And the living room is my play bar. I'm going to select that, and I'll go into settings. All right, so here we are in the Sonos app. We're going to do this from the settings. So you're going to want to click on this gear icon over here on the right-hand side. This is the menu that you should see or something similar. And we'll click on System. And again, this is very straightforward. I already have a sub synced up with my play bar, but your ARC, whatever, you can have a sub or not. It won't impact this process. And we're just going to select on this, and then we'll say Set up Surrounds. And then you just need to choose between whatever eligible Sonos speakers you have that are available in your system that can be used as surrounds. So you'll see here, I've got 2 devices, plus I have an amp in another area of the house, and I have another Play One. But we're going to use these 2 here. So we're going to select first living room, and now we will select yes, we will. And then once you do this, you'll come over and you'll identify where the sound is coming from that it starts to play from. So you can make certain that you're not going to mix up the left and the right. It'll go through the process of linking that in to the rest of the system. And from there, you can go and get everything configured. Now, this process doesn't take very long, but it will take a little bit. And once these are set up and connected, you will only be able to use this setup like it's a single speaker. If you want to be able to get it back to individual speaker control, you are going to have to go and effectively do this process in reverse, go into your settings and remove that sub, remove those surround speakers, etc., if you want to be able to manage or control them individually. So just keep that in mind. And with that, we're all set to go. So now we have it all in place. We have a single device shown in our speaker setup here, living room. Now that living room is now inclusive of play bar, my sub, and the surrounds. And again, you can still pair it with any other device that you want across the house. And so no concerns on that end. And I will say I would really encourage, if you are setting up a surround, do the TruePlay setup if you have an iPhone. And so you would just go in again into System, into your living room, and from here you can click the TruePlay button and click TruePlay tuning, and it'll walk you through that process. You do need an iPhone, I believe. I think they've started to have certain Android phones that can do this as well, but it's very straightforward and it'll walk you through the steps. So I'm going to skip that for right now, and we'll wrap this up. But I hope that was helpful. That's how you add rear surrounds to your speakers. Again, make certain you angle them at the correct area. They shouldn't be directly behind the listener pointed at them. They should be to the sides and back. And I hope that helps. Hope you all are able to get things set up and configured in your space. If you have questions, put them in the comments and I'll look to respond as best I can to help resolve any issues. One additional item, once you have this set up and configured, you'll want to know, am I actually getting surround in place? So if I'm on living room, which is my surround setup, and I'm going and I just play some type of music, when I click into this, it's going to show me some additional information, and it's just going to say, hey, this is the stereo information that you're getting from this. Now, when I switch over and I move to select the TV, it'll give me some different information. And so when I open this up on the TV, I can't see too much here because right now it's not displaying much, but you'll notice it shifts to Dolby Digital 5.1, and that's where you can see it. If it was playing Dolby Atmos, you could see that. Now I'm in Netflix, and Netflix is set up to have a Dolby Digital 5.1 signal. If I went to something else, for instance, I just moved to my Fire TV menu, it's going to show me Dolby Digital 2.0. So it's that little section underneath the TV. That's where you can confirm really if you're getting the correct surround signal. And that's important to make certain that you're really getting what you expect from your system. There's a few other ways that you can do that as well. If you go into System, I believe you can do About My System, and you can see details. For instance, here, you can see what type of audio signal is coming through as well. So that's just another way to check, or if you have multiple spots and you're wondering if they're getting the correct surround signal, that's where you can see it as well. But it does show up right on this speaker screen. Thanks.
And that's it. So we've gone through, we've actually set up the surround, we're ready to go. I will say the last step, and you should definitely be doing this if you're doing this with a surround setup, is to go and do the actual true play tuning for the setup. Surround sound in particular is going to be one area where the room dynamics and specifically the distances from the speakers are going to make a pretty big impact in terms of when and how audio should be playing, because surround signals do use a mix of delaying sounds between speakers, and so having that additional true play information is important. So I'm not going to be able to show you the really goofy wave my phone up and down situation to be able to actually do the tuning, in part because my phone is my camera. But if you do set this up and you get it all configured, take the extra 3-4 minutes, go through the true play tuning process. You'll look stupid. My kids make fun of me, but it is worth going through the effort. And I hope this helped. Hope you found this useful. And with that, enjoy your improved sound setup.